Well, we have a uh, pretty strong group of people here, including Dan Duquette, who you recognize as a longtime general manager in baseball, Paul Hartzell, who was a longtime pitcher. 44 years ago this week, first major league shutout, impressed the world so much that this young fireballer named Nolan Ryan said, I got to sit next to this guy and learn from him. And he did. Went on in Paul's career. Vin McCaffrey, and that's the link to all of this because Vin started this incredible company called GamePlan. And in the summary next to this YouTube, you'll see a little bit of a bio on each of these gentlemen and a little bit about GamePlan. But Vin, because this is something that it seems to resonate so much right now. And as your own website says, guiding athletes through every step. And I thought every was the key word, every step of their development. Give us the beginning, the intro 101 to GamePlan.
Yeah. Thanks, Ted. Thanks for having us. GamePlan software platform that works with athletes, high school, college, professional athletes in every step of their development across every stage, really focused on education. And you think about all the different stages of development an athlete moves through. GamePlan's been developed to guide the athlete through each step, working with their stakeholders, right? Folks that are in the coaching staff, administration, advisors of the athlete to be able to guide them through those stages of development. Ultimately with an eye for life after sport, which is a really, really difficult transition that athletes have to make. So we started this 12 years ago now, and Paul's been with us nearly every step of that development. And from that standpoint, we've evolved. Now we're working with professional leagues and clubs, over 200 college athletic departments, and now high schools. So we're seeing athletes move from literally the competitive, if you're a competitive athlete, aspiring high school athlete, wanting to go play college sports, we're seeing you through that stage of development. You're a really competitive college athlete, ready to make the jump into professional athletics. We're helping them with that transition. And then ultimately into the life after sports stage too. So we're there shoulder to shoulder with the athlete.
Vin, looking again, reading through your material, what struck me are the number of college athletic directors that were quoted as being GamePlan customers whose college programs are not going to develop very many pro athletes. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, that's what I'm interested in. It seems to resonate with those who are playing college athletics, even at a very high level, but understand that the pro avenue is not going to be their best shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the commonality there is regardless if you have a shot at playing professionally or not, college athletes are really busy, and there's no lack of focus associated with what's coming at them in terms of what's the development, whether that's compliance-based education or really an interest in just enhancing the student athlete because of the student athlete experience. It's becoming harder. They're playing basketball at Lehigh 20 plus years ago. Those days of having free time are few and far between now. And so where we fit is this really unique aspect associated with off the field education, out of the classroom education, and but providing it from the standpoint of being very comprehensive. I think everyone kind of realizes now college athletes need the development off the field in terms of financial education and career development. But there's also new sets of compliance education coming at athletic departments really, really fast. Again, regardless of the level, things like name, image, and likeness, sports wagering, sexual violence prevention, topics that are now front and center for a college athletic department, and how to deliver those with athletes pre and now current COVID type situations are really critical. And so we play a really interesting conduit to be able to engage the athlete directly, right? So we can get that information. What's making us different now, Ted, though, is, not just our ability to have all this form of content, but I think athletic department status quo was we used to do that a lot in person. And I Dan and Paul would talk about like how they would do engagements with even professional athletes in person. Well, there's a value to that, right? Because of the athlete experience. But where we take it is not just measuring things like participation. We want to measure things like comprehension. We want to be able to see things like sentiment. So we're taking what I would call traditional athlete development, kind of the status quo of working with an athlete, helping them develop, to now actually starting to progress towards, hey, are these individuals understanding the topics, the content? Are we able to measure this in a way that to be able to give them a comparable in terms of how other athletes are viewing and developing? So this is our fit, right? And college is all about the growth experience. So I think most college athletes, me included, would say I learned probably a lot, as much, if not more, outside of the classroom than I did in the classroom. And now we're just trying to put some technical aspects to that growth, and help them really do that and scale.
So Paul, what drew you, and you then referenced Lehigh, you do have a Lehigh connection there, both basketball players, Lehigh, but what connected you with Vin and GamePlan?
Well, I needed salespeople. I started a software business, and I was in London, and this is about 2008, 2009. The business was, growing nicely in all areas except for the eastern part of the United States, where there was a firmly entrenched competitor. And I needed some tough guys who knew how to sell, and men and women, and I needed them to really have a lot of the attributes that people learn by playing sports, especially in college. So I got in touch. I knew two of the coaches at Lehigh, both the baseball coach and the basketball coach. I got in touch with them. And I'm pretty sure it was the basketball coach, Billy Taylor, who said, there's this fellow, Vin McCaffrey, and he started this company, and I think they could help you hire college student athletes in lots of places. And I went, well, let's track that guy down. And pretty quickly, we got connected. And at one point, Ted, I believe I had hired 22 people through Vin's company, through GamePlan. Every one of them wound up being successful. We had a really good training process that I had developed that, went for a number of months. I mean, we didn't just throw people out there. We made sure that they understood sales, and they understood the product, and they understood the people they were selling to. We prepared them. We prepared them the same way, Dan's organizations have prepared players to succeed the major league level, because that was my background. And that's what started my relationship. And then as the GamePlan company grew and needed additional resources, I became an investor. I became a board member. And, it's just been a wonderful association, because there aren't that many jobs. This is what I sort of figured out after the last 40 years. There aren't that many jobs where you really get to go to work every day and help other people. And that's, to me, the most amazing and satisfying thing about GamePlan is, 50, 60,000 college student athletes have used the GamePlan platform, and it's helped all of them. Some of them to a greater extent, but it's just been a wonderful thing to watch, A, the company grow, and B, these college student athletes who, as Vin said, that's not like when, Dan played football and baseball at Amherst. I played baseball and basketball at Lehigh. We still had plenty of leisure times the way I remember it. That's just not the case anymore. And we've learned so much. GamePlan has learned so much about how people learn. And as I'm sure we'll get into it, this is an amazing complementary thing to teach young professional athletes that are coming into these professional organizations like football, like baseball, like the NBA, G League, et cetera. We've just learned so much about how to educate people in manageable bites. But it all started with, I needed salespeople, and I needed that attitude that people get from sports that says, I know how to win, I know how to lose, and I know how to get up tomorrow with the intent on winning again.
And Dan, that's a perfect segue into baseball, which is your involvement with GamePlan. And it is interesting from the chair I would sit in saying the college athletics role is phenomenal. In baseball, you're still getting a large number of young players that are not going to college, whether they come from other countries or just out of American high schools. So give us your sense of how GamePlan has worked in the development in baseball.
Well, Ted, it's all about player development, right? And you can see Harry Dalton there in the background at Fenway Park. And Harry was a mentor of mine, and he was in the farm system that Paul signed with the Angels. And then he taught me that baseball was really a people development business. And if you're going to develop people, well, how are you going to develop them? You're going to educate them in the skills that they need to do their job. And that's really why I was attracted to GamePlan. Paul and I shared the same passion for player development and we understood the same system, having come up in a Harry Dalton system, which I implemented at all three places I've been, and that's developing people and their skills. And this platform is just absolutely phenomenal, where you can aggregate all your educational resources and put it together in small bites of like 5 to 7 minutes so the players can understand it. Whatever the subject is, you could do it for learning their job at a position. You can do it for things that they need to learn off the field, with Latin players, how to get a social security number, basic language issues. You can use it for proprietary information that you consider in your organization, like how do you run the cutoffs and relays on defense. And from a human resources perspective, it checks all the boxes. Okay, if you're trying to reach everybody in your organization, all you got to do is check in on this one resource and find out who read it, and then you can have them take a little test, find out who learned it, which to me is invaluable. And the efficiency of the platform, I wish I had it when I was a farm director, because we could have got players to the big leagues a lot quicker, and they would have known their jobs better, having been held accountable for them off the field, prior to getting on the field. So I'm just so impressed with the efficiency of the education. And I can see why colleges have adopted this. When you're trying to get the attention of young people, whether it's athletes or not, and you can make your learning module short, where you have their attention, I think you've really done something dynamic to help people learn. And, that's really the attractiveness of me to this platform. I think it's a great, efficient resource for teams to use, and then speed up their player development. Now, what distinguishes the championship teams from the other teams? Well, it's good and sound player development. And what will help you get a quicker return on your investment? Well, if you can educate your people quicker, more efficiently, you'll get a better return on your investment from a business perspective. That's the dual dynamic impact that this software has for an organization. Not only can you teach the people more efficiently, but you can get them to the big leagues quicker, and they can learn their job better and do it more efficiently for you, for your company.
And Dan, as you're saying that, I'm sitting here thinking, what a time for you with your background to be talking this way, because here we are in this strange time. But one of the things we don't have is minor league baseball this year. So
Yeah.
the player development system, the biggest one, I mean, colleges obviously do produce as well, but the biggest one is still minor league baseball. Can GamePlan help augment the loss? I mean, it can't replace the games, we understand, but can it help augment some of the fact that avenue of player development is gone this year?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Things are changing. Educational systems are evolving. How we do things is changing. But this GamePlan platform is right there with all the assets you need to educate your players, to keep your organization together, to speed up the development process, and ultimately to help your club win games. I mean, it's just a fantastic platform. I can't get over how efficient this is. My uncle is a priest, and he always prided himself on short sermons, right? 5 to 7 minutes. He said, if you can't get the job done in 5 to 7 minutes, nobody's listened to you after that anyway. And when I got on a call with Paul and Vin, I said, how long are your educational modules? They said, well, 5 to 7 minutes. I said, bingo, man. I'm in. The proof is in the pudding from my uncle, who always kept his sermon short.
As a young guy, when I was starting to go out to speak in events and publicly, I was taught that the average length of a Vaudeville act was 9 minutes. Same reason, Dan. Same reason you just said. That was the vaudevillians a century ago understood that was the prime attention span.
Well, education these days is show business, right? You got to get the kids' attention first, and this platform will do it and help them, make good use of their time.
So Vin, we've heard now colleges. You touched on it. It starts with high school athletes, and now you've spread to NBA, G League, to Major League Baseball with Kansas City Royals. I know as a client, and the NFL. Talk about that. Talk about the involvement, because that's the biggest prize in our professional sports structure. If you get the NFL on board.
Yeah, they've been phenomenal to work with. We work with the NFL operations team, Troy Vincent and his team. We run rookie success programming for the NFL today. So all the rookies coming into the league, which this year has been quite a difference, right? Because they haven't had the mini camps and really, just them coming into camp this week has been their first entree into the NFL, short of GamePlan. So we're fortunate to be able to host well over 30 courses that introduce NFL rookies into the experience, right? And that's everything from player policy education, financial education, what are the resources, mental wellness, you name it, we're covering it for the league. And it's really exciting. As Dan said, it's still all bite-sized, 6 to 8 minute long courses, but it's being provided to every NFL rookie. So from the league down to the club, down to the players, that's all being associated. It's all actually already completed. So that's what's outstanding, right? Even prior to them coming into camp, they've got a head start on all the education. So that's just one aspect. We're really excited to be able to work with both the Players Association and the league office on a brand new program, helping them understand more about their mental health resources that are coming available. That will launch out later on in August. And one of the really cool creative programs that the league has invested in, it's gone so well from the rookie aspect. Troy and the team, Roman Oben and others who have a program associated with their college outreach have developed a series of courses that now are being sponsored and established for college football players on what is the NFL evaluation process. What are some of the leadership aspects associated with the NFL experience that they can bring down to the college football player? So that's actually been implemented in close to 200 athletic departments just for the football players. That's gone so well that the Players Association now is introducing for the draft eligible players an understanding of what is the Players Association. You think of a junior, senior in college, that's news to them. What's a Players Association? What is a collective bargaining agreement? Just getting down to basic terminology and understanding. The league's invested in all that so that players, even at the collegiate level, as they're starting to think about what's next for them, they'll understand the technicalities associated with the evaluation process. What's the role of the Players Association, the role of an agent, the certification process of an agent. All those things that are coming at that player very quickly, we've broken down and started working with them as early as freshmen in college now. So it's exciting, because if you think about the experience back to freshmen in college, all the way up now through rookies going into the league and beyond, that's all been implemented in the game plan.
I was fascinated by something else I saw on GamePlan's site. Vin said no, and this was, I think, in reference to the angle of a high school athlete student choosing college. And you said no longer it's enough to promise prospective recruits the opportunity solely in their sport. And again, that rung out to me, willing to invest in their development beyond their time in competitive athletics. Talk about that from GamePlan's view and how you've heard, the feedback you've heard from clients about offering that particular that service.
No, I think it's Dan and Paul just kind of alluded to it. Like in the present day, right? It's not just the experience on the field anymore, right? What is the overall student athlete experience, which is going to drive the recruiting process? We're heavily focused on the comprehensive development of the student athlete. Coaches at the collegiate level acknowledge that and understand what that looks like and represents. And now they're actually to be able to share that with a prospective recruit. It's really valuable. Mom and dad, maybe not the 17-year-old who's not thinking that way, that maturely yet. Some are, but mom and dad, parent, guardian, they clearly are. They're looking to understand what's that experience for their young person as they're making that transition. And What's the evaluation process associated with that? Where do they fit culturally into the program and more? So it's really exciting to see, not that it's just implemented, but it's become an asset for the athletics department as they're thinking about recruiting the next wave of student athletes to their program.
Yeah. Paul, I remember, and Dan touched on this about how using the game plan structure, cutoffs, relays, you could baseball, system-wide fundamentals. I remember watching you try to teach a high school young guy little tricks of the trade about pitching, and I saw that. Could you do that? Could you offer that kind of a service via game plan?
Well, I think there's some wonderful things that, yes, my quick answer is yes, we certainly could. I think there's tremendous opportunity, as Dan mentioned, for actual, here's how we execute on the field. Here's where you go. Here's how you back up third base. Here's how you run a tandem cutoff, all those kinds of things. Because, first of all, you don't have that much time during spring training. And once the season starts, you practically have no time to work on those things. The concept of having it there and being able to be, almost constantly reinforced with it, I think would be tremendously valuable. One of the things that I've been working on with a local high school team is, the good news and the bad news is, pretty soon, I guess starting on Thursday, everybody can watch games. And what they see, and this goes all the way down to Vin's son, who's got quite a bit of potential as a pitcher. He's a tall boy, and he's got good genes. And but the interesting thing about the kids today is they're watching major league games, and they'll see the sequence of pitches that are being thrown today. And, I look at that and I go, well, I'd throw them another fastball. And, these guys are, they've got something printed on their sleeve that says, oh, no. When the count's 1 ball and 2 strikes, you can't throw this guy a fastball. You've got to throw him a slider on the outside 2 inches of the plate. Well, I don't really recall being able to think that much. And, you go with your best stuff. But what I find now is I have to unteach young people who think they have to have 4 or 5 pitches to advance and even to get into college. And they don't readily understand what their strength is. So one of the things that I'm, sort of using, again, small manageable pieces of education for is to just say, look, we have to make this more simple. We have to identify your strengths on a particular day, on a particular type of pitch. Where I'm coaching this, the altitude here is 6,000 feet. And I'm sure at least Dan and you have gone to games in Rocky Stadium to see what happens to a spinning pitch at 6,000 feet. The answer is it just keeps spinning. It doesn't go anywhere. And so, I have to say to these young people, look, that pitch isn't going to work here. Maybe if we go over to Boise, where the altitude's only a couple of thousand feet, maybe it'll work there, but it's not going to work up here. So we have to do something different. So I think the deliverable, I'll tell you who has some really good stuff that I use that I'd actually like to sneak on to some of this, is Tom House, who you would all remember. And Dan, I don't know if you had him as one of your coaches with any of your clubs, but he has some excellent, short videos that I think, again, prove the point. This 5 to 7 minute, keep it simple, and you're addressing a younger audience. And that's another part of this that I've had to adjust to, is it's a younger audience. They want to know why. They want to understand more about it. And then, they go forward and have some good success.
Dan, in the player development world that has been your life in baseball, just a personal experience that comes to mind when I think about what Game Plan offers. So this happened, and I'm not sure if it's still happening in baseball, but it happened quite a bit that I saw firsthand. For example, when I was working for the New York Mets with another smart Duquette, they signed a pitcher from Korea. And the pitcher comes over, and the pitcher immediately has basically a valet, someone that can go get the dry cleaning, someone that can go get the laundry, someone that can speak as a translator, also as a shield to protect that player in the media setups. And that became once, I'm sure Ichiro was or Nomo was probably the groundbreaker on this. But my point was I would watch this and then I'd turn around and there were 10 Spanish-speaking players in the same clubhouse, Jose Reyes being one of them, who were given nothing. And it was just so, to me, it was so screaming for that opening that, wait a minute, it's such a source, it's such a pipeline for talent for baseball are the Spanish-speaking countries. And we were doing this for the Asian player, but not for the Spanish-speaking players. Boom. So Dan, you're talking about the things that GamePlan offers, and I'm trying to make that connection in my mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good one, Ted. When I got to the Red Sox and we started recruiting worldwide, and we signed players from Korea, Japan, Venezuela, and the Dominican Republic, we had to figure out a way to help them get to the big leagues as quickly and as efficiently as we could. And we came up with this foreign-born player development system. And each nationality of player had different sets of values that they were bringing into the organization. And you had to try to educate them in the values of the organization, teach them how to adapt to their new surroundings, their new environment, their new expectations, and then have some acceptable norms within the organization. And GamePlan, it would be right in GamePlan's wheelhouse to be able to do an individual educational program for each of these different countries or nationalities coming in. Because if you're going to sign the player and you're going to invest in them, developing them to the point where they're a big league player is part of that equation. And educating them in what you think the organization feels is important, what they need to know to do their job effectively, teaching them language, cultural norms, how to act within the clubhouse setting, how to act within a team, because they all have different values. I remember I went to see the Korean national team play in our AA team in New Jersey, and the outfielder dropped a pop-up, and so at the end of the inning the coach would have a little huddle, and so he had his little huddle, but the outfielder that dropped the pop-up had to stand outside the huddle. He was ostracized. Okay, that's the way they did it in Korea. So that's an example of a different norm, right? If they did that here in the States, people would be up in arms. You can't make an example of that person. But in that culture, they made an example of them to help them, learn a lesson, if you will, life lesson. And so, this is all about education and having an individual education plan that you can follow, that you can make in a short, identifiable, learnable bite, like they do with GamePlan, is a huge asset to an organization. And I know from running an organization, see, really you're investing in your people, okay, in the player development operation. And when you can identify a resource that helps people improve their skills, their own self-management skills, their ability to do their job, you're helping them build value in their own life, helping them build a career. And that's the magic of an education system. And I used to tell our coaches, coaching is really to teach the players how to coach themselves. Okay. Our job as managers is really to give them skills to help them manage their life efficiently so they can come here and they can do their job. And this type of system, helps that, contributes to that. And, that to me is all good. It's good for the players. It's good for the organization. It's good for the fans if you can teach the players, how to act like professionals as they're coming up, right? Now, baseball, when you sign, ideally you sign when you're 17 or 18 years old, okay? And you're going to be at the top of your career a lot quicker than you are in other career paths. So you got to know your stuff when you get there. I remember when we had Machado, we brought him up from AA to the big leagues with the Orioles. And we spent a lot of time with him on learning some other things off the field that we thought he would be challenged, because we knew he had the skills to get to the big leagues real quick. And so when we brought him up, they said, well, aren't you taking a real chance? And I said, well, wait a second. Manny Machado has 5 tools, okay? You're taking a chance when you bring up a player that has 1 tool. Manny has 5. And, you know, he's been around baseball for a long time. So, you know, let give him a chance. Let's see how he does. Now, he's a uniquely gifted player, but we tried to speed up the educational process for him because we knew that he would get to the big leagues quicker and experience a lot of success. And then, you know, a year and a half down the road, you know, he was the defensive player of the year after he came up to the big leagues. You know, that's an area where an organization can really help themselves by speeding up the educational process. And this platform, this GamePlan platform will help clubs do that.
And Vin, I've been watching you nod your head because I'm sitting here thinking what Dan is talking about for baseball is awesome. And now you have 60 plus colleges where a lot of what Dan just talked about from a baseball organization's responsibility, in many other sports, that's the college's responsibility.
It is. It's actually over 200 now, and we guess we have to update our website. But when you think about it, we've seen universities now introduce to the high school athlete individuals signed and sealed, ready to go to school preparation. They used to send a 3-ring binder out, or you know, the pamphlet of how to prepare. Now it's a learning course, you know, and it's a checklist of here's how to prepare for school. But I was just thinking about what Dan was just sharing. Even in the NFL, the different clubs are now working with GamePlan, building out culture courses, and it's helping prepare a rookie for the things that you just don't think about. Like if I'm moving to a new town, where do I live? You know, where do I get my hair cut? You know, the inside baseball of you know, that transition is really hard for that young person who's very anxious overall. We just hired a young man. He was telling us he was a 3rd-round draft pick for the Buffalo Bills several years ago, played in the NFL about 6 or 7 years. And he was saying one of the toughest things he had as a rookie is when he was in college, freshmen hang out with freshmen, sophomores hang out with sophomores. They're in your class. You see them on campus. It's just what you do. He said, so I became a rookie. Guess what I started doing? I started hanging out with all the rookies. Well, then one day what I realized is half the guys just got cut. You know, and in particular, the guy that was my roommate, who I turned to every night saying, man, I got my teeth kicked in today. I don't know how this is going. He just left, and he's now completely lost, but he's a 3rd-round pick, and they're seeing a potential future for this young guy. But yet the person who was his comrade in arms in this just got cut, you know, and helping an athlete understand just that, because it's a big transition from college to the professional ranks from that standpoint. Huge investment made in the player, but something just that subtle impacts that young guy, right? The mental wellness, the mental health, like how they're thinking about the transition, it all kicks in. So yeah, so clearly from, you know, high school to college to professional ranks. Overall though, Ted, when an athlete's playing, they're in their element. It's these stages of transition that they go through that will throw them sideways, right? Because there's anxiety that kicks in. There's an uncertainty associated with what's next. That's the new. That's always a difficult part for the transition. Stan said, like, how do I know about the culture of this new team I'm going to? You know, how do I fit in? You know, where's my strengths, you know, fit into that club? That's a big deal. Whether you're in high school going to college going to the professional ranks, high school going to the professional ranks. Those are things that we feel like that we've really assisted the individual, because they said, you know, give them credit. When an athlete's on the level playing field, they do well. It's these stages of development, the transitions that they go through. None the least of which, and unfortunately, I think there's way too little talk spent here. It's the transition away from sport that's their most difficult. And honestly, it's the area where the least support is met with as well, right? Because their value is diminished once they're done, and it's by far and away the most difficult transition the athlete has to make. Yeah.
And that's perfect for Paul, because I'm just going to say, Paul, you stopped playing, injuries, and then you went into the business world. You came back a couple of years later. You gave baseball one more shot a couple of years later. And just so I'm assuming that again, part of where game plan comes into you is you lived this without these sorts of tools to make that transition.
Yeah, that's right, Ted. For a couple of years, I held the record of the longest time between major league appearances. It was over 4 years. And then somebody beat that record. And I just saw the other day that a young man has been added to the roster, to start this 60-game season on Friday. And he's closer to 7 years. And I'm thinking, wow, I got buried. I'm in the third slot already. But, things didn't start out like Paul Hartzell was going to be a major league pitcher. And I went to Lehigh to play basketball and to be a mechanical engineer. My father, some of his parting words were, son, this is a 4-year program, so you better get done in 4 years. And so, I did. That's what I thought I was supposed to do, get a degree, 4 years, and then, and then probably go get a job. And instead, the job was I was drafted by the Angels, as Dan said, an organization that was basically, the way I think of it is it was the relocated Baltimore Orioles relocated to California, led by Harry Dalton. And that was an organization that I was quite comfortable in because of the man who drafted me, Walter Youse, one of Harry's chief and best scouts. I had played for Walter during the summer. So this whole idea of, what's the organization like and what does it expect, that was indoctrinated into me after my sophomore year of college by this man, Walter Youse. So I knew some of the things to expect, but then it ends, and it either ends because, that 92-mile-an-hour fastball is now 87, and, that's the way it is. And then you have to go do something else. And what I'm always saying to people who ask is you have to find another passion, because clearly that sport that you played to the highest level, whether it's some of the fellows that Vin has hired that played professional football, another young man played professional baseball, they need to find a new passion. And where I was very fortunate is that there was a bit of a baseball connection into the world of financial printing, that I found something else that attracted my attention, that attracted my passion, and allowed me to develop, along with some great men who, again, sort of took me under their wing and said, here's how you do this, and here's some things about our industry that are going to be helpful to you. So, I feel I was very lucky, but you're right. I didn't have any 5 to 7 minute modules that I could reference to do this. But I was fortunate that there were some men who helped me along the way. And of course, quite frankly, there's another part of this that I don't think is, there are some modules that deal with how you interact with your family members. But, one of the great things that, you and I have been involved with for over the last, 20 plus years, almost 25 years, is we have great families. And those families have helped us through, various ups and downs and disappointments and, relocations and all those things. Well, you kind of learn that if you're going to play professional sports. My wife often says that we used to be able to move from one city to another with 2 cardboard boxes. Well, I couldn't do it now with 2 trailer trucks. So
Good. Well, let's swing one more time around here and kind of put some punctuation marks on this. And Dan, because of your incredible background, again, in baseball player development, the next couple of years, look forward for us and summarize for us how you see game plan fitting into what is a changing world of baseball development.
Well, the thing about game plan is it's at the forefront of off-site education, right? And that's what's happening right now. And you can also, develop your educational plan quickly and efficiently to react to whatever needs to be done. So if you need to develop skills or understanding about what's happened in the politics of our country, you can put together a module like that to help your players understand it better and help them figure out what their role is. Paul was talking about families, and not everybody that comes into pro ball are they lucky enough to have a family support system. So the organization is constantly trying to help find the right mix for players to help them manage their lives effectively off the field. So this is a great resource for that as well, to help players self-manage themselves and understand themselves. And if you're a young kid that's coming in and this is his first job and you're trying to learn your job and you're trying to grow up and understand where you fit in the world, this is another great resource on, how am I going to learn my job? How am I going to understand where I fit in with this organization? What's important to from this organization's perspective? What do I need to do to move up and advance in the organization? And, this is a platform that can do all those things and, help you develop personally, help you develop personally and help you develop the value to develop a career for yourself.
That's so well said, Dan. And Vin, is in this moment, we've thought forever, like referencing with Paul about the financial challenge of changing careers when baseball suddenly comes to an end. The cultural changes that Dan talked about that are a big part of baseball. Now we're going to deal with what we're facing as a country right now, right? Bluntly, in professional sports, where people from all different backgrounds are literally put together into one place. And then there's the mental health challenge. And then there's which is so big right now on the college campuses, the sexual violence prevention and harassment areas. So wrap us up for that. And it's probably not fair to ask you this, but if you can wrap this up on the game plan approach to that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked. So we approach it through, I think of game plan as a wonderful way to distribute education. We don't have it all figured out from a content standpoint, but because we have such high usage rates, we have a lot of subject matter experts that are coming to us now. And so if you're a leader in the field of sexual violence prevention, in mental wellness, and we're a wonderful way to be able to get your educational lessons out to collegiate student athletes, professional student athletes, high school athletes. So for example, college is closed right around March timeframe. Our country's gone through a lot of social reform since then. There's a heck of a lot of anxiety associated with when college opens back up in about a month. What's that look like on college campus? So we're really fortunate. I'll just use this as an example. There's a partner called Rise. Rise to Win's the largest provider of social justice, race education for athletes in the world. And they're partnering. We have now an entire curriculum designed for social justice education. It's really well timed. It's fortunate that we've been working with Rise for the better part of 2 years, right? But now it's never been more needed. Just as an example, the student athletes are coming back to campus. Education leads, right? Like we're going to be able to cut through a lot of the noise associated with what's going on to be able to help an athlete understand the present day circumstances, help an athletic administration understand that, help a professional league understand that. So education wins, but I would say think of us as a really unique conduit to not only deliver content that might be game plan oriented, or maybe even a professional organization's orientation, but also subject matter experts. There are a lot of really smart people that are drawn to athletics to be able to deliver their field of expertise, whether that's on the field or off the field. We're that conduit to be able to deliver their actual expertise content. So it's been really well fit. Sexual violence prevention, entire curriculum. You mentioned mental wellness. Let me just touch on it because I would say we're not a diagnosis tool. But what's really unique, particularly with this generation of athletes, there's challenges, right? I think social media leads to context, the pressure, the time circumstances. What's unique about mental wellness is it's still somewhat nebulous, right? Nobody really has clarity associated with what it is. So, what's the range of associated with mental wellness? What are you really talking about? Game plan helps just define what is mental wellness, help create common language, common terms, common frameworks for an athletics department, even if they have a sports psychologist to be able to work with an athlete. brings them on the same sheet of music. So that's the type of work that we do. So and you think about how unique that is, how important it is. You're still dealing with 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds, maybe a little bit older, but they're not experts in this field. So helping them understand something that's really, really important to them, but how to get the most out of it, that's where we come in.
Well, mentioned in the summary next to this on YouTube, you'll see I'll put a link for the website. And Vin, you have two very smart people here that are alongside. I must say, Dan, you win the background award. That's sharp.
Oh yeah, thank you. Well, I always wanted to be with the Red Sox, but Harry wanted to be the GM of the Red Sox. He never quite got there, but he had two guys that he trained, Lou Gorman and myself. So
nice.
This is a picture we took one day, and it's one of my favorites.
That's great.
Thank you.
I'm impressed because I've been searching in vain. I don't see any cobwebs in Hartzell's gym. Well done, Paul.
Thank you. Yes, we and if you could see some of the pictures way over on the wall here, you'd see one right around here, which is me and Jimmy Reese. And I think, you know, my closing comment would be, you just haven't had the experience of, there's nothing like sitting down with a man like Jimmy, who lived a wonderful 93-year-old life, and I believe for something like 76 of those years put on a professional baseball uniform. And, you know, it was just such a thrill, and it's more of a thrill today, of course, than it was at that point in time. At that point in time, he was one of the coaches, and, you know, that's what it was. But as time went on and the friendship developed, and, you know, he met, my oldest daughter, and, you know, all the things that you experience in life, you know, Jimmy was just always someone that you were attracted to. And I look at that picture a lot when I walk out of this room.
That's a great note to finish on, fungo. And thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing GamePlan. I hope some people watch this and learn some more about a great new project. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
Ted.